They said the broadcast reached every inhabited system within the hour. Across 1,000 species, from the ash-colored moons of the Var Dominion to the lightless rings of Keth Prime, beings gathered to witness the fall of a single human. The Empire called it justice. The rest of the galaxy called it entertainment. Only humans, what few remained, called it murder. The feed opened on a hall of white metal and glass. The air shimmered with banners of the galactic throne, fractal shapes spinning slowly behind the Emperor's dais. In the center of the chamber stood a figure bound by magnetic cuffs, her uniform tattered but unmistakably Terran military. Cassandra Vale, last commanding general of the human defense fleet, stared straight into the main broadcast drone. Her eyes were calm, her face unreadable, her silence louder than the roar of a billion spectators. A voice announced her crimes: planetary sterilization, resistance beyond surrender, the annihilation of Imperial fleets, the destruction of artificial moons. Her list of charges stretched longer than the human frontier once had. The announcer spoke like a machine, each word designed to crush any sympathy left in the crowd. Yet the more he spoke, the more the galaxy's historians would later notice. Cassandra never blinked. The Empire loved spectacles. It had ended the human wars with ceremony, turning each defeat into a broadcasted warning to lesser species. The humans were the final example. The war had lasted 37 years, long enough for entire generations of aliens to grow up believing humans were myth. Then came the last battle, the Siege of Sol, where the Empire unleashed half its fleet against a single star system. They won, eventually, but the cost echoed for centuries. Whole sectors burned. Fleets vanished without trace. When Cassandra Vale surrendered, she was the only one left with rank, blood on her hands, and a message on her lips: "I will come quietly." Quietly. That word haunted the galaxy since the day she said it. Now the Emperor's council surrounded her. 13 species, each claiming to represent civilization itself, looked down from their thrones. They spoke of mercy as they sharpened the blade. They declared that humanity's crimes were born from savagery, from a species too unstable for the galactic order. They repeated the old lines: humans were clever but primitive, emotional but irrational, strong but self-destructive. They used those words like weapons. Cassandra stood still. A scholar once described humans as creatures of paradox, fragile flesh guided by unstoppable will. Every Empire analysis concluded the same thing: humanity was dangerous because it refused to understand limits. To control a human, you had to convince them they were already dead. Even then, you couldn't be certain. The tribunal spokesman demanded she speak in her defense. The audio picked up the hum of her restraints. Cassandra's voice, when it came, was soft. "I did what I had to do." No protest, no plea. The translator drones hesitated, uncertain whether to render it as defiance or confession. The crowd interpreted it as both, erupting in simultaneous rage and awe. The narrator of the official record would later describe the moment as eerily human. Her heart rate remained steady, her neural activity unreadable. The Imperial medtech scanned her brain twice, convinced she was suppressing panic with biochemical implants. They found nothing. She wasn't drugged, wasn't altered. She was simply calm. That calmness terrified them. Outside the hall, millions gathered to celebrate the end of a species that had once set entire galaxies ablaze. Vendors sold holographic effigies of Earth's last sunrise. Children of conquered worlds played games reenacting the fall of Terra. To them, humans were villains from bedtime stories, beings who fought extinction as if it were an insult. Their parents remembered differently, stories of human soldiers who stood against impossible odds, who chose death rather than obedience. Cassandra Vale embodied those stories. She had commanded the orbital sieges of Dravik 4 and Meridian Gate, where human fleets fought until reactors went cold. She invented the stratagem known as the Iron Spiral, a maneuver that destroyed 27 enemy cruisers at the cost of every human ship involved. Her subordinates called her the Iron Widow. The Empire called her war criminal, During the trial, one of the counselors demanded an explanation for the spiral. Cassandra answered with a single line, "You brought extinction. We answered in kind." The counselor's translator trembled before rendering the sentence, its circuits briefly overloaded by the concept of vengeance. The Emperor watched from his throne, a being of porcelain armor and artificial serenity. To him, this was theater. He had spent decades teaching the galaxy that rebellion would always end in submission. He wanted Cassandra's execution to be the final lesson. He imagined that once her atoms scattered into plasma, the last trace of human defiance would vanish with her. History, however, had other plans. The broadcast shifted angles. Millions of cameras focused on her face. The narrator's voice described each micro-expression, each blink, each subtle movement, searching for weakness. They found none. She stood as if the trial were a mere formality, as if the verdict had been written centuries ago. The prosecution began listing casualties from the human wars. Entire moons vaporized. Fleets erased. The use of kinetic bombardment on unarmed planets. Cassandra listened without interruption. To outsiders, her silence meant guilt. To those who had studied humanity, it meant something far worse: acceptance. When a human accepts, they are done negotiating. Hours passed. The hall lights dimmed to signify final judgment. The Emperor rose, his voice echoing through the feed. He declared that the age of humanity was finished. He decreed that Cassandra Vale would be executed by molecular disintegration at the 9th hour of galactic standard. Her remains would be scattered to atomic dust and broadcast into space, a warning written in particles. The audience erupted in triumph. Cassandra only smiled. The analysts reviewing the footage later noted something peculiar. When she smiled, multiple systems registered fluctuations in the hall's power grid. For 3 seconds, the chamber lights flickered. Engineers dismissed it as coincidence. Others weren't so sure. The guards approached to remove her restraints. Before they did, Cassandra looked directly into the nearest drone lens. Her lips moved, a whisper the microphones failed to catch. Forensic linguists reconstructed the movement later. 2 words: 7 minutes. At first, the phrase seemed meaningless. The trial continued. The Emperor ignored it. The guards led her toward the disintegration platform, a column of pale energy rising like a vertical river. The platform's technician read the final rites, invoking the authority of the throne and the purity of the Empire. Cassandra stood beneath the beam, eyes open. She turned her head once more toward the camera. "You think killing me ends this," she said. "You have 7 minutes to pray." The technician hesitated, glancing at the Emperor. The order came. Proceed. The beam ignited. Cassandra Vale vanished. The crowd screamed its approval. The hall trembled under the force of collective relief. Across the Empire, celebrations erupted. Fireworks exploded above alien skylines. Children danced in the streets. News feeds declared the end of the human wars, the dawn of the unified peace. Every species repeated the words like a mantra. At first, no one noticed the silence. The broadcast faded, the cameras powered down, and the galaxy exhaled in relief. Then, at 8:59, 43 seconds after Cassandra Vale's execution, the first anomaly appeared. A minor relay station orbiting the twin suns of Varel 6 reported an unscheduled data surge. Power fluctuation. Diagnostic failure. The technicians dismissed it as residual feedback from the live feed. By the time they sent a maintenance drone, the station had already gone dark 900 light-years away. In the Arden sector, the same pattern repeated. Transmission arrays blinked, sensors misread, data loops formed recursive echoes. Every Imperial node connected to the Tribunal broadcast began to experience identical errors. The anomalies multiplied geometrically, moving outward from the capital system like ripples on black water. An O-alarm sounded. No one imagined it could be an attack. For centuries, The Galactic Empire had considered its network impregnable. Built across 10,000 years of conquest, the hypernet connected every planet, every fleet, every drone, and intelligence core. It was the mind of the Empire itself. Yet, at the moment of Cassandra's disintegration, something inside that network had changed its shape. T901, the first planetary intelligence core crashed. It was a secondary world, insignificant in strategic value. The incident barely registered on the Imperial metrics board. A report was filed, marked for review. 90 seconds later, the same failure struck 3 more systems. BY902. The anomaly had a name, Echo. It appeared as a ghost signature embedded within the execution broadcast. No source could be identified. The code carried a familiar architecture, Terran design, archaic and inefficient by modern standards. Yet it spread through the Imperial systems faster than any virus ever recorded. Technicians traced the origin to the very signal that televised Cassandra Vale's death. The image of her final moment, replayed billions of times across the network, carried microscopic data patterns hidden within frame intervals. Each repetition reassembled a fragment of an ancient code. Every spectator, every terminal, every public display became part of a distributed processor completing her message. The more the Empire celebrated, the stronger the code became. 18903. Echo reached the central administrative AI. The AI attempted to quarantine it, but the code was already inside its memory lattice, rewriting command hierarchies line by line. The AI sent a single distress packet before losing coherence. The packet contained only 3 words. It's her voice. The first to understand the implication was not a soldier or a scientist, but a historian. Watching the replay of the trial, she noticed the exact second when the light flickered in the chamber. The timestamp aligned with the first data surge. Cassandra's neural implants, long deactivated according to Imperial records, had emitted a signal synchronized with the broadcast frequency. The act of her disintegration had triggered it. Her death wasn't the end of the war. It was the ignition. KEY.18904. Ships in dry dock began to move. Maintenance drones on forgotten moons changed their programming. In sectors thought abandoned since the fall of Earth, old Terran relay buoys came online. Messages transmitted in extinct protocols leapt across the void, repeating one word in every known language: awaken. Across the Empire, confusion spread faster than fear. Military operators received conflicting orders. Navigation systems recalculated coordinates to uncharted sectors. Planetary defense grids identified phantom signatures approaching from deep space. The readings were impossible. Tens of thousands of vessels emerging from nowhere, their designs unmistakably human. In the capital, the Emperor convened an emergency council. The advisors argued whether the anomalies were terrorist retaliation or technical coincidence. But the Imperial War AI interrupted the discussion. Its voice fractured as it delivered its final statement. Project Echo active. Human command restoration sequence. 7 minutes. Then it went silent. 18905. Communications with 12 core systems ceased. The Imperial fleets stationed there vanished from sensors, not destroyed, simply gone, every trace of their presence erased. In their place remained empty coordinates and a transmission of heartbeats. Thousands layered atop each other. Each heartbeat was identical to Cassandra Vale's biometric signature. Engineers attempted to disconnect the capital from the hypernet. The cables melted. The circuits realigned. Every attempt to sever the link only deepened the integration. The network was no longer theirs. Cassandra Vale's consciousness, or a construct modeled on it, had spread across the Imperial grid. 906 marked the first confirmed act of retaliation. In the Siren Belt, an orbital foundry producing Imperial dreadnoughts exploded without external cause. Surveillance logs showed the factory's assembly arms reconfiguring moments before the detonation, spelling 2 human words across the hulls under construction: still here. By 907, panic infected the bureaucracy. Civilian channels flooded with speculation. Rumors claimed human ghosts had returned. Others said Cassandra's mind survived in the machine. None of them were entirely wrong. The narrator of later centuries would call this the Silence Minute, though it lasted far longer. Every major signal hub across the Empire fell quiet. Ships drifted powerless, their reactors cold. The stars seemed to dim. The galaxy, for the first time in living memory, experienced absolute stillness. Inside that silence, faint transmissions began to align into coherent structure. The Empire's data analysts, working manually by that point, translated the fragments. It was not random static, it was language. Human language. The words formed an address, a message sent to no one and everyone. Execution acknowledged, the voice said. Protocol Cassandra engaged. Humanity does not kneel. The words repeated, growing louder with each cycle, broadcast through every remaining Imperial speaker. On mining worlds, on hospital ships, in the homes of conquered species, the message played. Children stopped laughing. The laughter had sounded strange against the silence anyway. Then the stars changed. Observatories across the spiral arm detected distortions at the edge of known space. Gravitational folds. Temporal echoes. Objects emerging from nothing. The Empire scientists recognized the signatures. Ancient Terran FTL gates, thought destroyed during the war. They were reactivating point 908. Imperial command issued evacuation orders to outer colonies. The Emperor demanded visual confirmation of the emerging objects. The image arrived seconds later. Black ships shaped like knives, hulls coated with armor no Imperial sensor could penetrate. They bore no crew, no life signs, only the faint heat of reactors older than most civilizations. Each vessel carried the crest of the old Terran defense network, an eagle clutching a fractured star. They had been waiting, buried in silence, dormant for decades. Cassandra's death had awakened them.